What was it, Jeff, that took you over the edge, do you think, and made you take this from the world of fantasy into reality?
From 15 on, I had this reoccurring fantasy of meeting a hitchhiker on the road and of taking him hostage and doing what I wanted with him. About 3 years later, I was 18 years old, driving home. I saw this hitchhiker about a mile from my house. Thought to myself, should I stop and pick him up, or should I just keep on going? I wish I just kept on going, but I didn't. I turned around, picked him up, and that's when the nightmare became a reality. It just seemed so bizarre to me that this obsession that I had been thinking about and wanting, just all the parts are there, and they make it possible to make it happen.
What happened after you took him to the house?
The house was empty. My mother was up in Chippewa Falls with her family, and my dad was living in a rented motel about 5 miles away due to the divorce. And I pretty much had the place to myself. I was drinking a lot during that time, and just, I don't know, looking for something to, some way to find some fulfillment, some pleasure. And I acted on my fantasies, and that's where everything went wrong.
All right, Mark, what do you got?
Yeah, it could be the edit, but it looks to me like the father lifts his head in approval to beckon forward this answer around what took you over the edge. So the father's either very interested in wanting to know what takes him over the edge, or there may be even approval and wanting to move forward because of the way that question has been framed, because it's not framed as what pushed you over the edge. What's implied is there's something that kind of takes you. There's another conscious element that draws you over rather than something pushes you against your will. So there's just some interesting wording there that I'm starting to believe at this point the father might like, because it abdicates him. It already starts to abdicate him somewhat from any responsibility of being part of this system that might produce this, monster. So what's interesting, again, Dahmer starts to get quite activated now. We see his legs start to kind of skip up, I think, as you were describing before, Greg, on excitement, picked him up. Okay, so picking somebody up. Nightmare became reality. Mother at Chippewa Falls. So there's some ideas there of everything falling into place for his fantasy to become a reality. I mean, imagine what fantasy you might have and going, but what if these events started to just fall into place, and your brain's going, it's all starting to become true. At what point do you then go, well, what do I need to do to push this forward even more? Or is life just going to, play cards in front of me to make my fantasy a reality? He says drinking a lot, and then and there's something he doesn't say there, but there's contempt on his face at that point, looking for something to find fulfillment. Okay, there's two gaps there. I would want to know what is not being fulfilled. What does he need? What is the gap there that he's having to do this act to fulfill? Because there is some story there about it's violence and sexuality mixed together, and it's the fulfillment of that. But I think there's a possibility that there are some gaps in his life, gaps in his childhood potentially, and there's some wish fulfillment that needs to be acted on there. That, if the mother is away, what is the wish fulfillment that you might act on if the mother's not there to watch this and the cards got played in front of you? Anyway, Really interesting. I want to know, what is that gap that he feels contempt for? And I wonder if it's sitting next to him. I don't know, but I wonder if it is. Chase, what do you got on this one?
Yeah, great stuff. And let's just go aside from behavior or nonverbal behavior. In this one clip alone, he refers to it as a nightmare and then later a fantasy. And I think this should illustrate to you how important it is to pay attention to this. How people use descriptors and language to describe their actions is a big deal. When he says the house was empty, there's small digital flexion on the dad. That's the one thing I'll just talk about here with this. So for me, I think this probably a point of personal regret, something around the divorce or leaving him alone, whatever it is. This would trigger for me a later conversational question about the dad later in the interview. And if you have kids, 3 things to do really quick. Number 1, what am I doing to make them more confident, even if you have to force them to do it? What am I doing to make them feel significant in their life? And number 3, identify where your kid's dopamine is coming from and modify it if necessary. Ensure you're guiding them by mapping out where their dopamine is coming from. And that's going to be a game changer, huge game changer. Greg?
Yeah, a couple of things. I think his whole thing that he shows with the digital flexion there, Chase, may not be about leaving his kid at home because he's 18, I think he says. I think it's more about he's out living in a hotel because he just went through a divorce. So there's probably something there. But we know for sure there's some stimulus for him there. With Jeffrey Dahmer, we see some kind of ultra containment. You see a deep swallow, a dry mouth, and then look at him, how far he's gotten away from his father. Mark, I think progressively, I think the stimulus may be sitting in the chair next to him, may be part of the problem. Remember, I told you that his father has later said that he was sexually abused at 8 by the neighbor, but he still denied it up until his death. Don't know if that says there's something hidden and some shame and a whole lot of something going on there. And who knows what went on in the family after that. All kinds of craziness can occur. He is apprehensive. Here we get to this discomfort. Remember, he's happy to tell you about body parts and all that, but he's apprehensive as he's telling this hitchhiker story, and he makes quick fishing eye contact, which we haven't seen. He's been okay with good eye contact, but he's doing the eye contact break and away as if he knows what's normal and that this isn't. Then he starts to talk like a text instead of like sentence structure. Listen to his sentence structure change. He doesn't use a full sentence. He goes into phrases. That tells you that he's trying to get through telling you how this happened. And then his legs start that whole adapting thing, Mark. I'm not sure whether that's out of excitement for what he actually did or whether it's, I got to get through this, but something changes in his brain. And then he goes and lets out a long breath and goes, and his cadence shifts and he starts to slowly walk through it as he's talking about the mechanics of what happened. I think he knows he's going to be judged for it and that everybody watching is going to judge him and there's discomfort in it. And then you see a minor tongue jut at acted out fantasies, and that's where everything went wrong. Scott, I'm like you. Bundy, Gacy, they would have never felt nothing, no shame, nothing about telling you. They said, yeah, I killed him. Bashed his head in with a stick. Oh, yeah, I buried him under the house. Oh, yeah, this guy's not that. It's weird because we typically associate monsters with psychopaths. Sometimes monsters are just monsters.
Wow.
Oh, I forgot you. What do you got, Scott? Turnabout's fair play, right?
I almost said something, but I did.
And with that, Scott Rouse.
The body on his Franken. With that, the body on his Frankenstein. Scott Rouse. What do you got?
Oh, Lord. Okay, well, we see that at the top of when you asked that question initially, that lip compression. I think again, I think we're looking at 2 things here. We're looking at an adapter as well as him trying to keep himself contained. So that's really interesting. This guy's really freaking me out because he's doing a bunch of stuff that says he's one thing, but he's not doing anything that confirms that. You can look at that and go, oh, I know what that is, but you don't have anything to confirm it, which is all of us have a soapbox we stand on and talk about that all the time, about absolutes and those types of things. So his behavior is one thing, but the way his everything else, the outcome of some of his behaviors are say one thing, but everything else says something completely different. And I agree with you, Greg. We're dealing with a lot of rage here that he's keeping in. And then he adjusts again his seat during that same question. He does that little seat adjustment, and he knows it's going to be uncomfortable answering the question. And he gets a little worked up here because, like you were saying, Mark, his leg jiggles a little bit. his hands. He's using those as adapters as well. And especially after he says, that's when the nightmare became a reality. That's when his leg jiggles again and he adapts with that coffee cup, like you guys were talking about earlier. And the rest of his answer remains quiet and calm. And he's not showing things he should be showing that are congruent with what he's done. It's freaking me out.
What was it, Jeff, that took you over the edge, do you think, and made you take this from the world of fantasy into reality?
From 15 on, I had this reoccurring fantasy of meeting a hitchhiker on the road and of taking him hostage and doing what I wanted with him. About 3 years later, I was 18 years old, driving home. I saw this hitchhiker about a mile from my house. Thought to myself, should I stop and pick him up or should I just keep on going? I wish I just kept on going, but I didn't. I turned around, picked him up, and that's when the nightmare became a reality. It just seemed so bizarre to me that this obsession that I had been thinking about and wanting, just all the parts are there, and they make it possible to make it happen.
What happened after you took him to the house?
The house was empty. My mother was up in Chippewa Falls with her family, and my dad was living in a rented motel about 5 miles away due to the divorce. And I pretty much had the place to myself. I was drinking a lot during that time, and just, I don't know, looking for something some way to find some fulfillment, some pleasure. And I acted on my fantasies, and that's where everything went wrong.
If you like this video, get the full body language breakdown and analysis on our main channel by clicking this video right here.